Good afternoon, Harlem and Harlems of the world. I am Terri Wisdom, and this is Harlem Network News. And as many of you know, Harlem Network News is a media platform. We started at the onset of COVID, and we're like 4 years in. So we're still here. That's pretty serious. And our mission is to really make sure that Harlem and, quote, Harlems of the world are informed, engaged, and called to action. And we really had a great opportunity to do that because we were credentialed press at the National Democratic Convention in Chicago. So that was amazing. We were there, we were on the hall, we were on the floor. We were able to do some of the ancillary events like the prayer initiation by the Black DNC at the Apostolic Faith Church, where Bishop Leah Daughtry and Pastor Tisha Williams and the closer, Michael Eric Dyson, really laid the prayer groundwork before the convention actually started. And we also did a hip politics with Cameron Trumbull and also the Urban League, and that was great. But I have two sisters here, and before I go further, I'm just going to say I'm also a member of Win with Black Women, and I've been on that call for 4 years. And of course, we all know we made history with the 44,000, but I want to just shout out our Win with Black women that were running that convention, Mignon Moore, the chair, Christina Q, managing the podium. And I'm just grateful because I know they reached for me as independent Black media to be a part. So I just want to shout it out, and Joteka, Holly, everybody, it was an amazing experience, and I was glad to be there. But Dr. Julianne Malveaux, who I interviewed and met, and most of these people you haven't seen them in person. So that's the deep thing. But I just, before moving on, I have two of our sisters that were at the convention. One is in the person of Kathleen Flemming Bruce, who's a journalist from South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina. And she was not credentialed in, but she was able to cover a lot of other things that happened at the convention. So Catherine, if you would just say hello to our audience and just tell us about your programming briefly. And then we're also going to introduce our other sister that's here, who was a delegate and is a district leader in the person of Roslin Spigner. So Catherine, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Terri, so much for inviting me to be part of your show. It's terrific that you've been able to keep it going for so long. I am Catherine Flemming Bruce here in Columbia, South Carolina. I had the opportunity to be selected as a DNCC. DNC is a Democratic National Convention Committee. They opened up a process for content creators. So those folks who, have shows on social media who aren't traditional media, I have a show like that. So I applied for that. I didn't get the content creator place because that was assigned to folks who had large subscriber base. But I was invited to be a virtual correspondent. The idea doing that from back home. However, I did have an opportunity to come to Chicago to participate in some Rainbow Push activities, vetting Jesse Jackson and the alumni who worked on his campaigns in 84 and 88. So since I knew I was coming to that, I made the arrangements with help, as many folks had to do, to be able to stay through the convention. And my intention was to cover the policies that were being discussed and talk to the groups who were concerned about various policies, wanting to see that in the platform or wanting to hear about that from the speeches on the floor from the presidential nominee and the vice presidential nominee, and seeing what efforts they were doing to try to get these in. And I paid some attention to the Democratic Party national platform and what that process was and how people get information into that. So that was my purpose. So not necessarily, being on the floor and all of that.
Okay.
And the virtual correspondents weren't going to get that credential anyway. But I did go to a number of things having to do with reparations and progressive party policies that they wanted to see. Some of the Gaza folks, I was able to talk to some of them. And so
Okay.
that's what I've been putting together. And that's what I investigated. So I could talk a little bit more about that later, but that's
Okay.
my
Okay.
purpose
Well,
there.
thank you for sharing. And it's a broad brush. So we're happy to have you here. And I do know this is Harlem Network News, and I'm Terri Wisdom. And I do know that they did have the content creators because they had
Mhm.
their own backdrop and they were on the floor interviewing people. And that's very new. That's the first time I believe
Yes,
happened at a convention. So
yes.
thank you for sharing that backstory. And now we're going to get to Roslin Spigner, who was a delegate, is a district leader, has a lot of time in. So, Roslin, please let us know who you are, whose you are, and a little bit about what brought you to the convention. And then we're just going to dive in and ask some questions. Thank you, Roslin.
Thank you, Terry, for having me, and welcome, Harlem. um, I am Roslin Spigner. I'm a native New Yorker, born in the Bronx, stayed there for 5 years and moved to Queens, which is still my home. I've been elected to serve as a Democratic district leader in 2016. That was my first election. I'm still in that position. I have to run every 2 years, or at least petition every 2 years to be on the ballot. I was a delegate for the first time in 2012. I worked for the Obama campaign. I organized Queens. I had the position of Queens regional lead. So I was able to serve as a delegate in 2012. That was my first time. That was my first actual election period. And in 2020, when we were having the presidential primary, there were lots of candidates who were running for president at the time. So I selected to be a Biden delegate. So I let my county know that I wanted to be a Biden delegate. There were people who were delegates for some of the other candidates, Harris and Buttigieg and so on and so forth. So I chose to be a Biden delegate. And then when he became the last man standing, and he became the presidential designee for the Democratic Party, I was automatically a delegate for him. The convention was virtual, so we didn't actually go.
Yes,
Pandemic. So in 2024, in actually 2023, I did tell my party leader that I was interested in being a Biden delegate again. So that was around October or so. Our petitioning started in December, and the certification was sometime in early January. And then the election, the presidential primary election, was for New York State was in April. So that's how I became a delegate for 2024. And I traveled to Chicago. Delegates have to pay their own way. No one pays for them to go. So it is very expensive. And so I had to pay my own way, my hotel, my airfare, and so on and so forth. And the experience was awesome. I did not plan to be a Harris delegate. But the way that things turned out, I now became a Harris delegate. So I can now officially say that I was a presidential delegate for 3 presidential candidates now.
Wow. Wow.
So that is kind of
Amazing.
history
Amazing.
for me. So,
Amazing. Okay.
That's terrific.
Okay. Well, we thank you for sharing. And this is very what we're talking about, and also the fact that we all approached it from a different lens is really, really important. Really with the same end, but from a different lens. And as a journalist for Harlem Network News, as an independent grassroots media, we had to pay our own way as well. And as you said, it was very expensive, and there were choices and things to make. You had to get there. I was fortunate to have one other staff person that was a district leader. So we were able to trade off with that and be able to get full coverage. So it was a lot, but I think that as grassroots independent journalists representing Harlem, representing the Harlems of the world, representing the people, I thought that it was very important that we be there, that we be a part, because I think that we reach a lot of people that don't listen to CNN, that don't listen to New York One, here in New York. So it's really important to be there and represent for our audience and do interviews and cover things that were pertinent, because I believe that we represent a lot in terms of the vote. I want to just jump to Roslyn, and I will also have you chime in, Catherine, about your state. But one of the things that we talked about as we did a little pre-interview is New York. I mean, we know that VP candidate Kamala Harris and Governor Walsh are in the battleground states, or what they're calling the battleground states. But Roslyn, as we were having our pre-conversations, like a lot of people in New York, particularly Harlem, just folks everywhere, kind of feel that when it's presidential elections, Democrats are assuming that we're going to vote for them. So they don't come, they don't talk to us, they don't see what's going on, and people feel passed over, and that can represent low voting turnout. So if you could just address that, Rosalind, and from your purview, Catherine in South Carolina, share with us. What about New York? Is it a battleground state, Rosalind, and why?
So yes, New York is definitely in play because of the congressional seats. And in order to, and Long Island tends to swing red and not blue. So because of that, if Long Island swings red for the congressional seats, it could also swing red for the presidential. Yes, we have more people in New York City that will get her over, or get a Democratic candidate over the edge. Okay, but then what happens is they can lose upstate, they can lose Nassau County and Suffolk County. And what happens then is that we lose the House, or we lose the House, because all of those races are district races. And so they're important. So what the New York State Democratic Party has done, they have what we call coordinated campaigns. And in Elmont, which is the neighboring community to where I live in Queens Village, I can walk to Elmont. It's 5 minutes from me. We have Laura Gillen, who's running for Congress, but that office is also now a Harris office. Okay. So people don't have to go to Pennsylvania to ID Harris. Now you can come out to Long Island and ID Harris right out of the Elmont office. And hopefully all of these New York State coordinated.
So just to interrupt you, because we always say knowledge is power, and we want people to understand. What is
And I fought
ID?
for that. Let me
What
tell
does
you.
ID Harris mean? What is that?
IDing, okay, so when you go door to door or when you're making phone calls, you have a survey questionnaire. Hi, my name is Roslyn. I'm a volunteer for A, B, or C, and I'd like to know, can candidate A get your support? That's a question. That's how you,
Okay.
and that's how we compile data politically.
Mhm.
Because
Okay.
we want to find out how many people are going with her, how many are absolute, how many are undecided, how many are no,
Okay. Mhm.
right? So this is how campaigns, they get the data to sway. Undecided voters that we have to come back over and over. When I was in Ohio for President Obama, I was assigned to a team that we were assigned to undecided voters. I had to keep going back to those voters over and
Okay.
over. Okay, so it is, all politics is local. And if we don't get those local responses, yes, we want to ID for Harris while we're IDing for Gillum, while we're IDing for the state race and the county, whatever races are out there, we want to ID, which means we want to get the surveys. We want to know the questions, the answers to the questions. And it's very important for us to get as many people from New York into Long Island to canvass, to make
Mhm.
phone calls so that we know where we stand. With Harris on the ticket, we feel that that's a plus, okay? In
Mhm.
some places, not in all,
Okay.
but in the
Okay.
places where a lot of, minorities live, Elmont, Valley Stream, West Hempstead, we could probably win that area if we
Okay.
come out in droves,
Mhm.
okay? To make sure that we're getting those survey responses for those candidates.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I know that the sentiment is, though a lot of people were very pumped up. I mean, the convention was amazing. The production value, I mean, I know the production value was pristine. Shout out to all you sisters that were on the back channel because you brought it. You know what I'm saying? But that was great. That was feel good. But we still have a war in terms of the vote and the message. And people, I mean, a lot of people are feeling like, okay, well, if it's a choice, and they're still feeling like they're getting to know Kamala Harris, and what are the policies, and there's a
Mhm.
lot going on,
Right.
but we cannot take this for granted. I want to just ask Roz quickly, and then I'm gonna come to you, Catherine.
Mhm.
um do you think that uh, Vice President Kamala Harris, candidate Harris, is going to come to New York? Is that in the cards? And if it's not, should it be? And what can we do? Because a lot of people here in Harlem, they're like, okay, she needs to come to the Apollo. She needs to come to the Abyssinian Baptist Church. People need to see her, they need to feel her, and she needs to see what's happening here. We know that Obama came to the Apollo. So what are your thoughts?
I don't know if she will. I mean, it would be a great thing um, for her to come. Yes, Obama came twice. He came the first time when he ran for office in 2008. And then he came again in 2012, 2011, actually, he came.
Okay. Mhm.
And, but I don't know if she is coming, but I do know that in the meantime, because this is a real short race
And we
and
got
there
a short window.
are a lot of
Got a short window.
places that she really needs to cover. Um, I think that we can become surrogates for her. In the meantime, while the campaign is figuring this out, um, will we have a lot of posters and things like that in New York?
Mhm.
I'm not sure. Um, I have no idea, but I do know that like getting Long Island to ask people and to mention her name and to bring her name up over and over again is
Mhm.
a good thing. And for us to learn how to be surrogates for her, to go into our places of worship and say, I'm here, with the Harris campaign. And I
Mhm.
just want to remind you to go out and vote. We need to do everything that we possibly can just in case. You know,
Right.
she
Yeah.
can't make it here. Now it's really a grassroots campaign here in New York. It's
Mhm.
really up to us. And to sit and wait for her to come before we make a move is dangerous.
Right.
Okay. It's
Yeah, we
actually
have to move. And,
yeah.
even as you're saying this, I mean, my mind is, churning and I'm like, okay, well, we're in this virtual world. Maybe she can do like a virtual town meeting, that speaks to New York because I really feel that and I guess I'm prejudiced because I'm in Harlem. I mean, I grew up in Queens, but my family came from the South, migrated to Harlem, and I'm the Harlem representative. But it's kind of like if you say all over the world, Harlem, that's the Mecca, and it represents a lot of the Black communities. That's who we are. So, Catherine, because I want to just make sure we keep our time, but what are some of the things that you covered on that virtual side? You were with Jesse Jackson and the Rainbow and so on and so forth. What were some of the takeaways from that? And how did that connect to the convention and the Harris campaign?
Well, I think some of the most important takeaways that I picked up is that there were groups that are committed to certain policies, and they want to make sure that those policies are addressed by the potential new administration, a potential new Harris Walz administration. So
Mhm.
I went to there were a series of reparations events, marches, and rallies, and so forth, a strategic event as well. And that was a place where people were trying to figure out what steps they would take during the convention and after the convention to convey that message to the vice president. Also participated in some Progressive Democrats of America events
Mhm.
where they talked about a progressive agenda. And of course, when Bernie Sanders spoke at the convention, he talked about some of the issues that continue to be important to him that he would press for. So Bernie Sanders was at this event. Some of the other Ro Khanna and some other individuals were there as well. And so this was combined with a event to celebrate the Reverend Jesse Jackson that was attended by a number of folks, including Representative Barbara Lee and Ro
Okay. Wow.
Khanna, and it was just a powerhouse all day. Maxine Waters and
Whew.
all those folks, when you thought they couldn't get any more powerful, they brought in a new powerful person. So Mo
Wow.
Green was there, the congressman as well. So those two events were a way to say, we still have a progressive agenda and we're very much committed to that. And we want to, work with the new administration or to press for those things beforehand. With regard to the people who are working on the Gaza issue, there was plenty of marching and even some protest activity during the week where law enforcement had to come out and some people were arrested and a number of things like that.
Mhm.
So one of the people that I talked to there spoke about doing a petition of delegates to see that something about Gaza will be put in the platform.
Mhm.
And upon inquiry, I found out that the platform had been agreed to in June. And this was before Vice President Harris became the nominee. And so a lot of that language was there. The first day of the convention, the platform was voted on and approved by the delegates there. So that wasn't going to change. But I felt that a lot of people in the public may not be aware of what is in the platform. So what I
Okay.
did was to create a checklist that drew from the 2024 Democratic National Convention platform that just showed these are things that Democrats support according to the platform. The
Okay.
original platform is 90 pages.
Okay.
And so we were able to create a checklist that's about 30 pages. So it's still, you know, kind of a whopper of a document, but it's easy for people to go through based on the categories that was created, you know, racial equity and climate and, you know, women's rights and all that. So you could find that and
Okay.
find these are the points that the Democrats like. So you can check the things that you are concerned about as a voter, and then you can listen as the vice president's platform comes out more and more, which of those things she's talking to and what her policy positions on things are going to be. So that's going to make it a little easier for people to tap onto that, but also be vocal about what it is that they want to see the new administration pay attention to.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. That's really important. And please send that document to me so that we can get it out
I
to
sure will.
everyone. Everyone.
I surely will.
Knowledge
Yes.
is definitely power, and it takes a village. Roz, do you want to speak a little bit as a delegate, as a district leader, to the whole platform issue, and you know how folks can get their initiatives and you know ideas of reparation, what their thoughts and feelings are, how impactful can they be to the candidate, if you'd like to share?
Well, the good thing about New York, we now have a reparations committee now in New York State. That Senator Sanders was he was the lead on that. It's a reparations study committee where people are appointed to, and I think California was a state that also had that. But I think that you know, being that New York State is in the midst of gathering data as to how we as a state would pursue this, I think that we don't need the president right now to weigh in on it, because we now have it where we can weigh on it ourselves. I think that what happens is we so many times things are happening and we just don't know about it. We're not really paying attention to these things, and then we want somebody else to well, you know, make it happen. There are going to be testimony. We need to be involved in that
Okay.
you know, regularly. We need to know who the commissioners are, who are or you know, who are on this particular committee just making these decisions for us as far as reparations is concerned. And so that's the first thought. Yes, it's an issue. Yes, it's something that I definitely want. But New York State has made it a little easier for us to pay attention to what's going on in our own state as far as that's concerned. It's a little tricky because once you start saying reparations, then everybody wants reparations. And everybody's not going to get reparations, and then they have to decide who's eligible. What's
Right.
how does one become eligible? Is it everyone of the diaspora? Is it those who, you know, came to the Americas?
Straight. Yeah.
Both parents? Is it one parent? You know, it's very complicated. And I think that we need to be paying attention to
Absolutely.
what's happening
Absolutely.
right now.
Yeah. Thank you.
Right. And if I could add right now, there was a
Please.
story yesterday in the Associated Press about the California reparations action, where the lawmakers passed a number of bills, you know, atoning for racism and so forth, so on. But the money part of the bill that was supposed to be there was taken out of what was passed. So that was allegedly a action by Governor Gavin Newsom's office because of the budget concerns that they say they have. The folks who are in the coalition to move that bill forward have said if that's not put back in, there may be some repercussions in California for the vice president. So that is going to come into play according to these news reports.
Okay,
And
so
that could happen in New York. I mean, it took the governor
Yeah.
a while to
Yes.
sign that bill.
sign off,
And,
yes.
and we have to pay attention to everything. And I think that we are just, a lot of times, we are not politically astute. And so how do we expect our kids to be when
Right.
the grown-ups
Yeah.
are?
We're not, and just interrupting, I'm Terri Wisdom, this is Harlem Network News, and a part of why I got involved, and I mean, I've been in media my whole life, you know, working at all of the networks, and I'm also have been a Harlem entrepreneur. But during COVID, my partner kept encouraging me, saying, you got to do a network, you got to do this. And, you know, you're thinking you got to have this in place and you can't do it till you got this. But really, when COVID happened, I just had to jump into deep water. And a reason for that is because Black people were walking around Harlem saying, I'm Black, I can't get it. And they were thinking that because they did not see the messaging, they did not see themselves on the news. And then when the body bags were piling up at Harlem Hospital and, you know, tents in Mount Sinai, then it hit. So I knew I had to get in there. I had to, as a news agency, and thank God for the virtual, where I could actually get out there, get some Black doctors to get on and share their views, get some public officials to come on and talk about what's happening and what we're going to do. So a lot of this has to do with media. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Everything happens right now virtually on the media, you know, social media. I have a grandson that's 13. And I remember 2 years ago, he said to me, I don't know what I would do without TikTok. I wouldn't know what was happening. You know what I'm saying? And so there are certain questions. And then he said to me just the other day, and this is my grandson, I talk to him a lot. He knows what I do. He's the one that helped me to get CapCut. You know, those are the ones who,
Yeah, they know, the kids
who know what to do. He said, Grandma, you need to use CapCut. You know, but he said to me, he said, is Kamala Harris going to let all the people come in from the border? You know, now this was a question of a 13-year-old, but that's because it's something he saw. But at least he's asking. And I told him, you got to fact check. You know, you got to fact check what's going on. So media plays a big part.
Right.
And I continue to say, you know, I can speak from where I am. People are overwhelmed with working 2 jobs, trying to pay their rent, trying to have food. We have separate but not equal schools here in District 5. So when you talk about the parents don't know, the kids aren't, and you know, there's a lot going on. So that's why media and a lot of initiatives are very important, because not maybe, but we can pierce the veil, you know, and give the people the information. As much as I troll all kinds of things, just sitting here with you, Catherine, and sitting here with you, Roslyn, I'm learning some things. You know, there's always things to learn, but it's kind of like everybody doesn't know everything. And some of it is, you know, people's fault, because you need to go out and try to get this information. But sometimes it's not that easy to get the information. You know what I'm saying? So that's why you have media who can, like, you looked at the 90-page document, Catherine, and you broke it down to 30. You know what I'm saying? And as it said, like, people got short attention spans, which we can't afford to have, because these things are determining what's going to happen in our life. You know, so I'm very grateful to be here, and we're getting some of the information. But question, Roslyn, because you're on the ground with this, with the reparations, would it not be an easier and more global thing if it was being dealt on a national level, so that it's not, you know, just like the abortion rights is not broken down? Well, New York doing this, Florida doing that, like broad brush, let it come from a national level. What do you think about that, Roslyn?
Absolutely. And that is why we need to have control of the House and the Senate. We don't even have the John Lewis Act passed. And that was, we could have had it, but Christian Cinema and the other fool in West
Okay.
Virginia,
Mhm.
you know, did not support it. We could have had that passed. Why would you not want to support the John Lewis Act?
Right.
So yes, I think that if we have control of the House and the Senate, meaning Democrat control,
Okay. Mhm.
then there are a lot of things that we can get done. Without it, we can't. And that's why it's important. It goes back to the whole local, no
Local
matter what,
elections,
no
very,
matter
very critical.
what, it goes back to local elections. And that's why we have to be on the ground. We can't have a national plan unless we have a local plan.
Okay.
And even though it sounds great, yeah, this is what she should support. Yeah, but it has to come, it has to start in the districts, in the states, in the communities, and then we push it to the national platform. And I think that's the start. We can't do anything unless we do something locally first.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. And one of the things that I would say, and I'm just going to say this very quickly, is that reparations is not like a real far-fetched thing in terms of some money. You know, in Amsterdam, I have a friend that's from Amsterdam, and her husband was actually part of the Holocaust and had an Anne Frank story. And she was just, kind of sharing with me one day. She's Black and Jamaican. Her husband was Dutch and Jewish, and basically, he was getting a check like Social Security for years because of reparations for the people that were in, Holland that these things happened to. So it's not a far fetched thing. And then even before he passed away, he got like a big lump sum. And then, the spouses and the children will continue to get this money. When the Japanese back by World War II time were put in the concentration camps, they got some, reparations for that. So it's kind of like reparations is not the boogeyman. This has happened in a lot of different places. So we just have to figure it out. And that economic reparations would really help to level the playing field for people of color, because we're dealing with economic situations. And, in my view, everybody that is under a certain income that's a person of color, they need to have their student loans wiped out, because we have the educated poor happening who owe $200,000 and will probably never be able to get that debt, before they die, taken care of. So we have a lot of issues and concerns, but we don't have too much time. This is Harlem Network News. This is great. I want you to just share, Roz, because you were on the floor as a delegate. You were there in New York. What was some of the highlights of the convention and what you saw coming out of the convention? I know you went to the breakfasts. I don't know if you went to some of the caucuses, but what were some of the highlights for you and highlights on the floor? Thank you.
So, first of all, I'd like to say that one of the highlights for me was just being in the room and having that floor pass where you can actually walk around if you chose to. I didn't do a lot of walking around, but you could walk around and, you can go all the way up to the stage.
So
So
they're going to be
you're actually able to go, all over. And so the highlight for me was seeing a lot of the people. I always say that conventions are almost like going to the Oscars for regular Joes.
Right.
Because everybody's there. And especially if you are really into media, or if you watch a lot of media on television, I should say, televised media, you run into all of the individuals that give us our information. A lot of them are there. I ran into Willie Geist and Jonathan Lemire. I'm a Morning Joe junkie, so
Okay.
that was kind of fun too. I love Willie, so that was fun. I did run into Jesse Jackson. I couldn't get my camera together, but I did
Okay.
snap a photo of him, and I
Ah.
couldn't snap one with him. Spike was, he was at the New York roll call, so I did
Okay.
get a picture with Spike Lee.
Okay, so you gotta send me some of these photos, please.
Yes, yes. And my cousin, who was a delegate from Georgia, was there, and this was my first time meeting her on the convention floor.
Wow.
And
Wow.
that was beautiful because she was looking for me, and then she found me, and we're like, we look alike, and it
Oh,
was
yes,
beautiful.
yes, yes.
And the roll call was, I mean, that was
Yeah,
really
that was amazing.
up. The breakfasts, so our New York breakfast, all of the a lot of people came to the New York delegation breakfast. Let's see, Buttigieg and Senator Warner and Warnock,
Warnock.
and who else was there? Well, Yusuf was there, of course.
Mhm.
Swazi was there. He brought the couple whose son was kidnapped in Israel.
Okay.
They also presented on the stage, but they were also at the breakfast.
Right. And I know we had, not to interrupt you, but I know we had a tragedy where they found 6 hostages killed. And I think that son was one of the people.
Yes.
You mean just recently on the
Yeah,
news?
yeah,
Yes.
that just happened. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
How
That just came out a little bit last night, but it came out this morning. Yeah, and that's one of the things from the media standpoint. Before I got on, for us, and we're pre-recorded audience. This is Harlem Network News. I was like, let me put on everything, look at every channel and see what's going on. And so that as I come on and I'm talking, I know what actually happened. Yeah. Yeah.
So sad.
Yeah. So
But anyway, it was exciting. It was electrifying. And also, it was just, I think that the fact that it was 3 Black women that came together to put this convention together.
yes.
Sister Daughtry and oh God,
Mignon Moore, Christina Q.
and
Christine is from South Carolina.
they did their thing.
I love it. Yeah, they did their thing. And from a production standpoint, when you think about it, they put this together in 2 weeks. You know what I'm saying? On the 21st of July, we knew she was it. And they put this together in 2 weeks. And this was of Olympic stature. They take a year to put the Olympics together. They put this together in 2 weeks, and we had everybody from Stevie Wonder to John Legend to Oprah to the Obama, I mean, and we, I'm just saying, I do this. We didn't wait for anybody. When they said the person's name, the person walked out. You know what I'm saying? And production doesn't usually happen like that. And a lot of the people that were there, Governor Walsh's, Walsh people, his team, these are not people that are necessarily used to doing the media thing, but it was seamless. I didn't see anything that didn't happen like it was supposed to, so that was
getting buried by the balloons at the end. I'm telling you, I don't even remember 2012, and it could be because we were sitting up, we were elevated.
Right.
But I was actually like coming out of that arena, trying to, balloons were everywhere. It was very hard to walk across so that I can get out of there.
Right.
It was so much fun, just the balloons.
Right. No, I know.
I'm gonna use her word, joy. Joy was in that room. Joy was at that convention. And there were nothing but smiles on people's faces throughout the entire 4 days. It was just amazing.
Yeah, it really was. And from a Harlem Network's news standpoint, independent Black media, I'm just raising my hand and I'm just saying we needed our floor passes, but we were grateful to be there and we worked around it. Harlem Network News, we had a half an hour on the floor every night, and that was not enough to walk around like you said, to be able to walk
Couldn't even, it was
anywhere.
so crowded. How could you
Yeah,
get anywhere?
yeah,
How could
yeah.
you,
So
the
it was
New York delegation had so many reporters there.
right,
But
right.
I
Yeah.
tell you, we could have used more Black journalism
Yes.
because
Yes.
I didn't see it. Not
No, I
not
was
as much
there.
as I needed to.
No, and that needs to funnel up and down to the campaign because we're bringing a different message, and it's important for us to be seen. We really need to be funded,
Right.
to be there because we're making a way out of no way, but we're concerned to make that way. But and the last night when we had tooled our time to get in at 7 because we knew that Dr. Yusef Salam was speaking, there was a Secret Service lockdown and we could not get in. That was devastating. We were supposed to do a live with our state senator, Cordell Clear, or a listening party. We couldn't do it. So these are some things that have to be considered in terms of getting certain messages out to the people. But despite all of that, it was still electric to be there, and there was a great sense of community in the room. And I mean, honestly, I have to say, like, I don't know people like Governor Walsh and his life and all of that. So it was a good thing to get to understand that better. And I think it's important because in this country, if we can all understand better, and I don't think it's a racist thing if we say, okay, what is the Black agenda? Like the Black agenda needs to be known. It needs to be addressed. It's not a racist thing because a Vice President Kamala is Black and and Asian descent. None of that. Each group needs and has different things, different needs, and coming from different places. So there's nothing wrong with saying it. And I think that Win with Black Women kicked that off when it was Win with Black Women, then it was Win with Black Men, it was Win with the Black dude, the white dudes, or whatever. There are different people that have different needs, and we need to know the needs and we need to address the needs.
Right,
So
absolutely. And I
that's my
think that
statement.
will be, I did put in the chat my show location and
Yeah,
my
thank you.
Twitter. And that's a way, because I do have on the Twitter that link to the checklist, for the policy checklist
Oh,
for people
great.
to
Okay.
find.
Mhm.
So please come in and visit that. And I think that now that the convention is over, been over for, maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks, you're still going to continue to see these groups making sure that their agenda needs are known. So that's going to happen. And I think people are going to be looking to their party leaders to see how they can help. There are other groups as well. I participate with a group called Swing Left that is encouraging people and giving them the tools to reach into these battleground states and help make sure that we get that House and Senate majority that Democrats are looking for. So those apparatuses are there. We have groups like Public Citizen and other groups that are working on the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and several other acts that are going to make it easier for many people to vote. So those initiatives are in play right now. So
Okay.
it's a opportunity for many great things to happen and to plug in where you fit in, as we say. Get
Okay.
in where you fit in.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been an honor to have both of you, and I've learned
Yes.
a lot, which is why I love interviewing people. I always learn more things. Roslin Spigner, I'm from Queens, and I know that her family has a great political history there. My condolences go out. She just lost her cousin, Philip Spigner, who I actually went to junior high school with. So we learn a lot. I also, as we speak, I came straight back from the convention. I ended up to have to spend the night in the airport in a chair, like a lot of people did. to get back to New York, but it was okay. You know, I was determined, but I came straight back, and that was to the homegoing for our president of the NAACP. And that was in the person of Jeffrey Eaton. And a lot of people came straight back and went and to his homegoing. So I was okay that I had to spend the night, but I was grateful that I was able to get back in time to go to send him off and be with our people. So there's a lot to be said. There's a lot to be done. I want us to just weigh in a little bit. We know that our candidate, Vice President Kamala Harris, had her first interview on CNN. I want to know what people thought about that. And then we're going to try just at the end to let you get up at least one or two of your pictures, Catherine, because you were doing something that other people weren't doing. So that's a good thing. So what did you think about the interview, Roslyn?
Well, the media they seemed to really want to have this interview because they felt that she hadn't interviewed with them, and that they needed to have something, you know, they wanted, I guess Dana Bash had some questions that she wanted answers to. And that was you know, did you ask the president to support you? Which was, wow, you know, we all heard that he called her to say he was lending his support to her.
Right.
So when I heard that, I was kind of shocked.
Okay.
After that question. I was also a little shocked that she brought up the whole race thing again. You know, after everyone knows, I think that everyone knows that this woman has identified as a Black woman. You can look at her pictures over time, the images of her, and you know, even if she has an Indian mom, she is, you know, we all know about the 2/3 rule here in this country.
Right.
Everybody's acting like they don't know about it. Okay. We had our first Black president who was biracial. So why go through all of this all over again? When we don't do it with anyone else. It just keeps coming at us. And I love the way she handled the question. Next question. Okay. Like, we're not going to spend time on this nonsense.
Right. Yeah,
So
that I thought she handled.
That's how I felt about it. I felt that as a delegate sitting at the convention, that I learned about her. There were stories about her over and over and over. So I don't think I learned anything from that interview that I didn't know prior to the interview. And she has said repeatedly, you know, I have more experience at the border than anyone. I was the attorney general for a border state. So I locked up a lot of people who were, you know, human trafficking,
drugs,
and all of the other things that, you know, that are illegal to bring across the border. So I think she presented herself well. I think that, you know, the interviewer could have went in a completely different direction. Do what you have to do, but also do some things where we can learn something that we didn't know before the interview.
Okay. And Catherine, what was your view? Did you see?
Well, I think the main thing that I would like to see is to have that interview put up on YouTube or on C-SPAN, because the people who missed it aren't able to find it anywhere. And at this point, you know,
I got it. I just got to put it up. That's happening. I got it.
Okay, yeah. So we need for that to go up on social media so more people have access if they missed it. And I also think it's important to get a lot of those positions on the record, because this is what people are looking for in terms of what the policies are. So there's still questions about what the policies are that, you know, maybe the people who are more tied in to the campaign are going to know, but the people beyond that we want to vote, they're going to be looking for that in journalism, interviews, in subsequent speeches. So I think the more speeches that she does,
interview.
puts these things on the record for people to find easily, that would be terrific.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that. And I'll weigh in a little bit as we're going round table. I didn't think the interview went as well as it could. And I think it's okay to say that. I think that we're here for Kamala Harris and Vice President Kamala Harris as a candidate and Tim Walsh. So I think it's really important that we speak truth to power in terms of how things went and directions that they can go. I don't know that I have the back channel, but whatever the back channels are, I want to reach out to them now because, as you said, we don't have a lot of time, and I'm sure they got lots of feedback in terms of how did it go and how could it go better. I thought that Donna was a very cautious interviewer. She was timid in terms of how she was asking her questions. And some of the questions, because she was coming at Kamala Harris, I agree with you, Roz, that the way she answered that question about the race thing, and you're correct, like pretty much in the time that she grew up, now everybody talking about multiracial, but pretty much if you had any kind of Black in you, you lived in the Black community. And if you had a white parent a lot or not, they lived there too, because you couldn't live anywhere else. You know what I'm saying? So let's be clear about America and what race means. If you have one drop of Black in you, even if you look white, you were Black. You know what I'm saying? So we know what that was in America, and that has to do with the dynamics. But there was a question about the fracking, and I think that our Kamala Harris has got to be hard and more definitive. And I know she's trying to keep that balance, but I think she's got to come with her clear point and she's got to punch it. That's just my view. My comment that was on the fracking. And then the Gaza situation, we know that this is a powder keg. This is a tiptoe situation. And she answered that question. She's saying, we need a ceasefire. But the real press behind it that a lot of people are asking, and they're asking their representatives, they're concerned about the money flow, about the fact that money that we're sending to Israel, whether they're an ally or not, is basically killed 40,000 people, and we're also concerned that money can go out like that for Israel, or money can go out like that for Ukraine. But meanwhile, if we want to talk about reparations or stuff that people need in the communities here, that's a whole nother situation. And the asylum situation is another situation. So possibly town meetings or other kinds of interviews, but I think that she's got to punch it. You know what I'm saying? Because we don't have time. And if the interviewer is looking, because all the aftermath, because we know how CNN and MSNBC, everybody sits around after the thing and gives all their opinions, which we could all be there giving our opinions. It's not necessarily that they're, quote, experts, it's their opinion. But that's what we've got to look at, because this is being made in the media, the message, the media. That's how it's going down. So.
I don't think any presidential candidate, honestly, in their right mind, is going to speak against Israel.
Right.
And it's just, some of us just have to put our common sense caps on, because, America is, why we have Israel in the first place. And so, they are not going to speak against, support of Israel. That's political suicide.
Yes.
And I think that Barack Obama, he probably came very close to, like, I'm not playing with you, Netanyahu. And where I stand, but he had to run for president. But once he got in there, and everybody has spoken to Netanyahu. Schumer, everybody has had conversations with this man who's not well, because he's not.
Right.
And I'm talking to the media. That's my opinion.
Okay.
But the bottom line is, I just don't think that in a presidential election, she is going to put herself in a position that could cost her the election.
Right. Yeah,
Well, I
oh,
will say to that the students are back on campus and the protests have resumed on college campuses. And of course, throughout the convention, there were protests, and there are people who are still working. Arab American League and some of the other progressive groups still working. And now the question is arms embargo as well as a ceasefire. So the dialogue is going to continue, and some people are going to make a choice based on what happens, how they go to the polls. So that's going to have to be what the candidates deal with.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for putting that out there, because I think I hear you, Roz. It's important to play safe, because you are electing, but just in normal, even business experience, sometimes when you play safe, you lose anyway, and you didn't go with what your gut is, or what are the people saying? You know what I'm saying? What do the people want? And so I just think that that's a whole nother lens in terms of looking at it. I mean, in the people that I met and I interviewed, I met some folks, I think from Michigan, and they were like, Talib Ali is their representative. And they were like, the people, they were African American, but they were like, hey, our whole district, we have the largest amount of the, Palestinian people in the country. And like, they're upset, they're upset because they felt that somebody should have been on the platform or on the dais at the convention that represented this other view. This is America. We can have different views. We can agree to disagree. So, I'm just saying, in the big mix, that might be something to think about,
And hopefully America will be America again. I just think we just need to kind of get out of this thing that we're in, a Donald Trump caused. This whole division that we have going on here in the United States. Hopefully we'll be able to have people that will honestly give their true opinions about things. This is horrible what's happening here.
Yeah, it's horrible. And we know a lot of economics are behind it, because the AIP, a lot of
it was horrible when it was Syria.
Yeah, a lot of the public officials, have gotten funding from them. So, it's just, they got a strangle around their neck, so these are some of the things that we have to fix. But we're going to wind down. This has been a real robust conversation. We're going to visit back to you, Roz, and we're going to get our information straight, because I know in terms of like how you become a delegate, you were explaining how that happens, and that, there's elections to become a delegate. And I know here in Harlem, we had, some issues and concerns, because, our district, for our congressional district with Congressman Adriano Espaillat, is very gerrymandered. So we've got 3 districts within a district that all have different needs. And, the Central Harlem people didn't feel they were represented in terms of being the delegates, and fortunately, our state senator Cordell Clear was appointed to a delegate, which kind of balanced out the table, but there really weren't any, there was, I think, one Black person, which is more representative of Central Harlem. And then we had Senator Cordell Clear. So we've got to look at that. But once again, this is deep diving. How do delegates get elected? And, word on the street was, well, this person appointed them and that's why they were there. But we got to know our stuff. We got to know our stuff. That's what I have to say. We got to get involved. We got to know our stuff so that we're ahead of the game and we're part of the game. And one of the things I just want to say, my closing statement as Harlem Network News and, Black media, independent media, I took after our great Shirley Chisholm. And I was like, okay, I'm claiming my seat at the table. And if I ain't got a seat, I'm bringing a folding chair. So I feel like, that's where I was. And I was very grateful to be there. I didn't get to everything because of the limited coverage and this and that and the other. But what I got to, and I know for next time how to position myself. But I was great and grateful to be a part. And, we just have to keep pushing. We have to keep pushing. Like you said, nobody may not give it to you, but you're going to, power concedes power. So I'm coming with power for our independent Black media because we need to be there. So if you would just give your closing statement, Roslyn, what you want people to leave with as a takeaway from you as a delegate and as a district leader from Queens District. Mm-hmm.
Yes, again, I would just like to say thank you for inviting me. My message is to everyone who's out there who's listening, don't sleep, okay? Stay woke. And a lot of times what happens is when we sleep, we lose out. And I think that during this particular process, there were people who were not engaged by Joe Biden at some point. And so people just were not engaged. They didn't care. You had New York for Biden. Nye Whitaker was pushing phone banks for Biden. She was out there beating the bushes, her and her team doing all kinds of stuff. And then all of a sudden, when the candidate changed, and everybody woke up. Okay. And then everyone was like, oh, well, why can't I do this? Why can't I? But you weren't engaged before. Okay. And so
I've had Nye Whitaker on several times, so I'm grateful for her.
And Nye was out there beating the bushes. Nye and I go back to Obama days.
Okay.
But she was out there beating the bushes, and I have Friday calls because I was on a lot of her calls. And now everyone woke up. And that's just how it is sometimes. A lot of times, they say the early bird catches the worm, and there weren't a lot of early birds out here. So people got, and then you have okay, well, let me see what I could do for this one and that one and that one. And that's when it becomes gossipy, because now this one gets, pulled in, and how can I get pulled in? Whereas if you were in there all along, you could have got pulled in from the beginning. And so that's what I always say.
Right.
Stay woke, don't sleep, stay engaged, no matter what's happening. And therefore you will be informed, because guess what? When your party comes to you and say, we need you to work for us, we need a story, we need this, we need you, to knock on some doors, or we need you to make some phone calls, we need, media, whatever, you're there and they know they can count on you. And that's basically what it is. A lot of it is knowing who your district can count on. If they know that they can come to Catherine or Roslyn because she's going to get something done, they're going to get something done, they're going to always have them on speed dial. Okay. And they're going to come to you, because guess what? Everybody can't do everything alone. And even if people are elected, they're not going to always be available to do everything. So the whole thing is, the thing to me is, be available for your community. If you love your community, be available for your community. You may not be able to do everything, but at least if people can count on you, they'll come to you. Trust me.
Right.
They'll come so much. You're like, oh God, here they come again.
Yeah, and as you said, working collectively, working together, not letting anything get in your way. And I'm inspired. I didn't get everything done at the convention that I wanted to do. Most of the time I was going to bed at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. So, trying to get my stuff lined up for what I was trying to do. But I know what the gamut is now, so that I know for the next time how I need to position myself, how I need to move. But I feel like with what I was working with, I got a lot done. So I'm grateful for that, and I'm grateful for the people that supported me.
And you said you stayed with Win with Black Women over
4 years. Yes,
I know that Higher Heights was doing things for the last 4 years. They had their afternoon Sunday brunches.
Right. Yes.
And so people were doing things, moving, in directions and spaces, and people were coming on to these calls and they were engaging, and then there were people who were not, and then there were people who are now coming on board. It's never too
Right.
late.
Yeah,
So-
and the communication, because I know I went to, by the time I got out of the convention and got back, it was 12:30. And then after the fact, I now understood that I could have taken a bus straight to wherever whatever was. I went to one of the Higher Heights thing. As I got there, it was ending, but it was, and I think a lot of people didn't understand when they were saying a brunch thing, that it was actually a physical, so there was some communication breakdowns, but people got to stuff. And that's the important thing. And I feel like the most significant things that I got to that other people didn't get to was that initial prayer, because that was really powerful. And also to the hip politics with Trumbull and the Urban League. Those were some powerful workshops and connectors. So, with a team of 10, which next time, Harlem Network News and Catherine will be there with a team of 10. We'll have our money in order. We will have a room, and we'll make it happen.
And work with these political organizations now, so that when the time comes, they're like, okay, we got to pull Catherine in. We got to pull this one and that one, because you don't want it to be, and I'm not saying that it is, I'm just saying that for anybody who's doing this work, you don't want it to be Catherine who? I don't know her.
Right.
So, you want it to
you gotta be in the building. And that is one of the things that I can say about Win with Black Women. I've been on the call for 4 years. I have spoken, I have shared. I'm one of the people that could have been up there. My son was shot and killed on the Shinnecock Reservation 3 years ago. I could have been one of the people up there talking about my story. However, from being on Win with Black Women, and Win with Black Women knew that, they've shared it. I had interviewed Joe Taker when we were bringing Brittany Griner home. But it's kind of like when you're online and you put stuff in the chat, but I think I put it in the chat so many times that I wanted to be at the convention, and that the Black media needs money when it came.
And they were willing to help. They were willing to help.
Yeah, and they told me, listen out, because you're going to get a message from the convention people. And I listened out for the call, and then I had to fill out some application that was kind of like the SAT. It took me 2 hours to fill it out. And they were saying to me, sorry you had to go through all that. I guess I was being vetted, but I knew I was being vetted. So I took 2 hours. I filled it out. I turned it in. I didn't want nothing to turn me away. But then they were saying, don't worry, we got you. You getting your credential. You know what I'm saying? And so it said to me that people in high places, when you put stuff in the chat and when you're present, they see you. They see you. And that's a very important thing. I think Dr. Yusef Salam, when they spoke, and I worked with them to get the gate of the exonerated for 2 years here in Central Park, the first gate in 150 years. But, their film that Ava DuVernay did, When They See Us. So when you're there, you are seen. So I'm in agreement with that, Roz. So closing statements, Catherine, please.
Well, quickly, I want to say that I'm so glad that you invited me. Thank you so much. And it was great to have the opportunity to be at the convention and to hear these voices of people who have these issues and agenda points, Progressive Democrats of America, Reparations United, people working for the issue in Gaza to be resolved, to bring all that to the public. And with regard to becoming a delegate, I had the opportunity to do that a number of years ago as well. So if there are folks listening to your show today who are not New York residents, just be aware that many of the states have different rules. So you're going to have to go to your state party leaders to find out what those rules are, and not assume that they're all the same for every state. For instance, our election for the presidential primary was in February, but the delegates were chosen at the convention later on in the summer. So our process is totally different. So do get with the people in your state and county, find out what the process are. Myself as a media person, I'm trying to put processes out there and help people understand some of these processes. So I have a piece on my page that talks about what is the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. Gives
Yeah.
people a little background. There's also the a couple of other Voting Rights Act that groups are trying to get passed next year. So we break those down. So that's what we try to do on our page, is break things down so people understand. We've talked about SCOTUS rulings. We've talked about a number of things like that. So that's what I think the role of media is. You know, you're doing a great job with that, with the Harlem Network News. And I'm so happy to be a part of it. So thank you again for the invitation.
Thank you so much. And it's also collaboration.
Yes.
So yours is the first of the series. I'm going to be bringing on, several other different groups of people, but I'm glad that we started with this group, just based on the knowledge base that you have, Roz, and the purview from all the experiences that you've had. And Catherine, just meeting you, from your sister who's here in Harlem, and we're in Harlem Mothers and Fathers Saved together, so it's a great collaborating thing. And that's one of the things that Win with Black Women does, is it has, Black women from across the country, and you find out information that you would not know what's going on in Hawaii or somewhere in North Carolina. It's not on major news. So you would not know these things. If you're local, then you would know it. But on a national level, you're not really going to get to know that. So it's important. Once again, knowledge is power. I'm Terri Wisdom. This is Harlem Network News. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And I'm going to take an example from my big or little brother, Roland Roland Martin, I'm sorry, where I'm just saying we have GoFundMe. Please hit it up. We have Zelle, Harlem Network News at gmail.com. We got Cash App. Please, this is, we're still covering our expenses. And we also will be going to the Congressional Black Caucus. So we're going to make sure, like I said, that, I'm taking it from Shirley Chisholm. I hear that in my ear, I'm going to have a seat at the table. And if not, I'm bringing my folding chair, but I'm going to be there. And this is not, and we are going to be there. This is not about me, but this is about us and the people and the knowledge, the engagement, and then, them getting involved. So that's what we're about. So, it's a great day, and it's a great time. And it's an opportunity with a Kamala Harris, who is a person who looks like us. And that's a great thing. But the accountability, we've still got to make sure that our agendas are met, but the fact that somebody that looks like us is there, the fact that a Michelle Obama can stand up and, she brought it in such an elegant way, in terms of speaking about Trump. I mean, she brought it, so it was a very powerful time, and we have to continue to be empowered and to do the work. Okay. And to make sure that the younger people continue to do this work. So Harlem Network News, you can reach us at harlemnetworknews.org or harlemnetworknews@gmail.com, and 646-261-5397. And we'll be putting up and sharing with Catherine's platform, and anything that you want to bring to us, Roz. You're in Queens, we're in New York City, in New York City and Harlem, but we got to keep the conversations going. So I appreciate that, and I'm grateful, and for whatever, back with never. So thank you. Okay, and blessings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great work. Thank you.
Okay, let's go. Thank you.